Those are
noted. The recording in progress message is really loud.
no.
Great. Can't miss it.
I'm
Okay.
ever ready.
Yes. So for everyone else, we might as well start since we've got a bunch of early Malaysians today. Thank you very much. So we are Women Who Code Kuala Lumpur, and I'll be passing the slides and the mic over to Brianna to give a brief intro to us.
Thanks a lot, Kim. Hi, everyone. Good evening. Thanks for showing up after a hectic work. I hope you guys have a good day. Women Who Code here, I'll keep it short. We are a non-profit organization founded in San Francisco. KL chapter is fairly young. It was founded in 2014. Not very young, but still young. Younger than our age right now. This is we host a lot of events on technical workshops, soft skill workshop these days also, because we believe that everyone will need some soft skills to help us progress in our technical industry as well. So workshops that we have product management stream, which is what you are having right now. We have data streams. Recently we started our Web3 or blockchain stream. We also have software engineering stream, where all those are fairly technical, but we still encourage everyone to join us. Women Who Code mission is to empower women in the technology field. We don't really limit ourselves to just exposing the workshops or events to the women. We also need our male allies to support us on this exercise. So if you agree on our missions, and you can just join us and even volunteer with us. So feel free to scan the QR code or find us on all the social media to follow for any event updates, right? For any volunteering opportunity, you can also scan the QR code. We don't only limit women to a volunteer. We also have guys to volunteer, like Kim Yang here, or like Ken here, right? So the organizing team that you will be hearing from us is Brianna, the director of Women Who Code, and we have Kim, the lead, which is the one that just spoke, spoken just now, and she will be the host for the day. And we have Hui Ying, who is a volunteer, Ken, and Mavis. So I will proceed to the next one. Today, the topic is going to be switching into products, and the agenda will be fairly straightforward. We will be starting with introducing the speakers, and then we will go into our panel discussions. At about 9, we will then take in some of the Q&As from the audience. If you have any questions or any inquiries that you want to ask our speakers, feel free to drop it into the chat or raise your hand. We will then unmute you during the Q&A sessions. Last one, which is something special from the product talks, we have this fun quick answering where our speakers don't even know the questions. So we will be throwing out the questions to the speaker, and the spot speaker will have to make a decision and then raise up a paper with the answer. So it's going to be 2 options kind of questions, and they are only be given 5 seconds to answer the questions. The last one will be wrap up, and we will announce the next series. The entire duration we targeted to finish before 9:30, so that everyone gets some rest after a long day. So yeah, this is the house rules. Ask as many questions as you want. Post a question into chat, which is I mentioned before. After the talk, after the entire fun quick answering, we will be having a group sessions, group photo. So you can turn on your videos, and also then we can have a group virtual photo. Okay, so I think I'll pass the floor to our moderator or the host of the day, Kim, to introduce the speakers. And there you go. Take it over, Kim.
Yeah, thank you very much, Bri. So I'll be letting the speakers introduce themselves, but also for your benefit, today we are humbled to have both Alicia, a product manager at DGX, and also Yi Hui, a product manager at Gifted, here with us tonight as our panelists. So would both of you be able to share a little bit about yourselves for the people here today? Alicia, could you start?
Sure. Hi everyone, good evening. Quick intro about myself. So I'm Alicia. I am a product manager for a HR software solution called AltHR. And I've been in the role for almost 3 years now. Actually, I just had my 3-year anniversary at the company in August, early August, so it's been 3 years. So yeah, I work closely with the software developers, product designers, and also the commercial teams in growing and developing what we would call the HR super app for companies. And outside of work, I enjoy movies, reading, and football, as you can see from my bio. So yeah, the quick intro about myself.
Thank you very much. And Yihui, your turn.
Hi, everyone. Hi, my name is Yihui. I'm a product manager currently at GiftDad. So GiftDad is an online learning platform for sustainability courses. We have our very own dedicated curriculum team to develop these courses, and I'm tasked to create and shape the first MVP platform to host these courses. Prior to GiftDad, I was in iMoney, which is my first stint in product management. It is a comparison website for financial products like credit cards, loans, and so on. Then I moved on to Jibble, a SaaS platform that is for time and attendance tracking, where I was tasked to revamp from the then 1.0 product to the 2.0 product. In my spare time, I liked to write. Mainly, I write to learn and to introspect, and also self-skate. That's all on my side.
Thank you very much. That was actually quite a good seek into what would have been my first question, which was on how did the both of you get into product. So thank you, Yuki, for already sharing that portion of it. That was great. Alicia, would you like to share a bit more about how you fell in love with product management and then made that move?
Yeah, sure. So I actually got into product courtesy of my former company. So I used to work at IBM, and I used to work in like a finance role. So back then we used to have like an online learning resource where you can watch educational videos on topics like blockchain technology, machine learning, etc. So two specific video series that really made an impact on me. One was on agile methodologies and one was on design thinking. So I remembered finding it interesting and how your favorite digital products like Spotify, Snapchat, Twitter, Facebook even, they were all built on the foundation of things like design thinking and agile development. So I found it interesting on getting to learn more about that and finding out this whole new world called product management. So that's how I started to pivot towards that area, trying to find companies in Malaysia that operates within this vicinity and roles that may be currently open for me to apply to. So I was quite lucky enough to find my current company who was willing to take me in, nurture me to the product manager that I am today. So yeah, that's how I discovered product management initially, and that's how I grew into the role as well. Yeah, so that was my backstory of how I got my foot in the door, basically.
The origin story, as it were.
Yeah.
You do have anything to add to yours as well?
Yeah. So I graduated with a marketing degree. So naturally, I decided to do marketing as my first job. So my first job was in KL. I was working in a digital marketing agency as an account manager, where I was mostly managing clients and also cross-functional teams. And it was around 2017 when my tech team decided to conduct a UX workshop that opened my eyes to tech and product management. And from that workshop, I was inspired by the design thinking process to really understand who your users are before actually ideating and creating a solution for them. But also at the same time, I wanted to be more involved in building the product from scratch compared to just marketing the already finished product, right? But I realized I didn't have the necessary design skills. And I think then what I could have done was to talk to my team about it, but I was a bit afraid of what would people think about me switching careers. And on hindsight, I shouldn't have thought that way, and no one should either if you do want to switch careers. So, but at that time, I decided to just went rabbit holing down myself. And that was how I found out about product management, how I got into the space, because I thought to myself that I didn't have the design skills. Maybe I can find somewhere along the lines I can still work with designers and developers. So I read a lot. I did a product design course in Udacity, a free course. I searched on Twitter and joined a local PM community to network with other product managers around KL. Shout out to Colin Pell. He's one of the founders of PM Huddle, a local PM community in KL. And then after talking to a few more product managers there, I decided to take the leap and started applying to whatever product management roles are available out there.
Thank you very much. That was really extensive, and I'm sure really helpful for those who are looking to move into that role, even with a similar or different background. For the both of you, probably like to start with Alicia. What do you think is the biggest challenge you foresee for someone without a prior background of development or software engineering or exposure to product to break into this role?
Yeah, so yeah, I can definitely speak for myself here because I went through this exact scenario when I was looking out to break into product management. So I think the biggest challenge that one would need to know or one would go through would be knowing how to tie in your previous experiences, whether it's professional work experience or maybe even what you've gone through in school. If you are, let's say, a recent graduate or like you just came out of school, so being able to tie whatever skill set you've gained and being able to tie that into a potential product management role that you want to apply to. Especially hard because you would then try and find a link between the skills that you've gained in school or at the whatever background your former work experience was, and then trying to tie that into the company or the position, the exact product management position that you want to apply to. So I think there's a lot of deep dive into your skill set, no matter how small or irrelevant it may seem. It could be your link to that company or to that particular product even. So I think if I were to draw back from my former experience, so if someone really asked me what did I gain out of my former work experience as a finance, sort of like a business planning analyst in the finance environment, I would really say I only gained Excel skills. Like really, I dealt with a lot of spreadsheets, a lot of data. And when I first think about it, spreadsheets, it's like no big deal. A lot of people know spreadsheets, they know Excel, they know how to like pivot data and things like that. But once I really dived into it, I understood that what I really gained out of that was how to be structured, how to deal with a lot of different data, how to summarize them into easy to understand summaries or reports even. And that really proved useful in my current role right now because it taught me the importance of having to be structured as a product manager to be able to deal with different viewpoints, different opinions, different data coming in from like every potential source you can think of. So with that, I sort of tied that into what I've done in my previous role and then made that a selling point of myself when I was applying for product management roles. So definitely, I think what one would need to do is just really understand how you can bring value to a potential product management role based on your former skills. So I think that would be something that could be could help you a lot, like when you're applying for a product management role.
Thank you very much for that. Yeah, that definitely is one of the most common challenges and very, very daunting one for many people who are trying to switch into that. So that was really helpful. For Yi Hui, what do you think? How can a candidate without a technical background then prepare adequately to score during this kind of interview session for a product manager role?
Yeah, I think +1 to whatever Alicia has mentioned about having whatever skill set that you have to be able to transfer your current skill set into the current role that might help you a lot in the next product role. For my case back then, I worked with multiple stakeholders like clients, social media creatives, development team, performance marketing, and so on, managing multiple projects. But most of all, I also had the chance to work with a few web projects, which involve some design and development work. So that helped me to, just mention it in my interview or mention the CV that I'm able to complement my current skills to the product management role that I'm applying for. So I think one tip that I have been using so far when I do apply for companies is that check out the job description and the responsibility of that job post and see how you can match that with your current skill. So for example, if the job description say something about being able to work together with stakeholders to create requirements or create a product backlog, you can from your current skill set, you can see how you can match that to that job description. So in my case, I would probably say I have managed this one project, which allowed me to work with different teams and come up with like interesting ideas for marketing campaigns. I can also do that similarly to the product role. So something along the lines. But I would also advise building your own side project. It kind of shows initiative and proactiveness on your side that you're doing something to become a product manager because you're building something on your own and you're solving like a certain problem. In that way as well, you can use that side project to showcase it as a case study during an interview. For example, the decisions that you made for certain features in your side project, the product vision, or even the challenges that you face building that side project. And the best part is you don't really need to know code or learn how to code to do this because there are plenty of no-code tools out there that can actually teach you to build something. And it can even be as simple as a directory of restaurants or campsites in Malaysia, for example, just so as long as you can build it yourself and then explain your vision and your justification of building that project to your future employers.
Thank you very much. I do actually have a follow-up question to that, surprise. But before we get into that, I will probably just ask Alicia to contribute her 2 cents on this question as well. So again, how can a candidate without a tech background prepare during the interview session for a PM role?
Yeah. I think a lot of it would mirror exactly what Yi said, which is researching on the company, the role, and also perhaps even what could be helpful is the product that the role would potentially work with. So I think example, if one were to have, let's say, a finance background, they would find it hard to what kind of relevant product skills can I contribute from my experience in numerical data and things like that. Perhaps even, let's say, the company or the role itself deals with fintech or somewhere along the lines of finance. That's where you can draw a link between your experience and that job itself. And I think this also shows initiative in the sense that you actually researched what the role would entail, what kind of products you would be working with potentially, and also the I guess the nature and the background of the company as well. So I would say the thorough research on 2 sides. So one is on your skill set, what you can bring to the table, and one on the role or the company that you're applying to, and then just linking them both together as well. It may take a bit of time to try and find that link that brings both of these together, but I think when done well, it could be a real selling point, and it could be something that could propel you in the application stages as well. So that was what I experienced as well.
Okay, thank you very much both for your input. So Sid, follow-up question was probably to address the more tangible aspects of an interview. So when I was interviewing for my product roles last time, sometimes we would have some take-home exercises, for example, or they would have a certain brainstorming collaborative challenges. So I think for the benefit of that question, what were some of the best ways you thought you prepared for those kinds of stages of those interviews? So I think Yi can take this again, if applicable.
Okay. So it's what kind of things that you think an interview might be looking for during the stages that you interview for? Yeah, let's see. I think 3 things I would think. One is to have a good product sense. So that what that means is the skill of understanding what makes a product great or the impact of the users using it, right? So that would mean dissecting your favorite product and see what makes it popular, what makes everyone using it. So research into what was it in the beginning, how did it get into that traction, what decision did they make, what was the design process, and so on. There are plenty of case studies out there to explain what makes popular products great. And then you can also learn how to especially for newer product managers, to learn how to sketch out wireframes based on the existing products so they can pick up what makes a product great. There's also learning how to have more empathy for your users. I think, as I mentioned earlier, what got me interested in product management was because I was inspired by the design thinking process about how we need to really understand our users and their problems before actually jumping into building the solution itself. So that's how user research comes in. So what you need to do is observe how users use your product, pay attention to the micro details and how people react to your products, ask open-ended questions. It's also important to know how and why people do the things they do. So, but also don't just ask about their problems, you can also ask about their day-to-day lives and how the product contributes to their lives that way. Walk in your user shoes in that sense. So if you're a B2B product, you can ask your customers about the nature of the business, how big is the team. So you might uncover some little details here and there. I think that's especially useful from whenever you have an interview with your future employers, potentially, because that goes to show that you really want to get into the user's shoes and to understand them before you actually build a product. And then finally, I think communication is a super underrated skill, because you need to communicate not only to the development and design team, but also the rest of the organization, because you can't do a lot of things alone as a product manager. It's a huge teamwork aspect. So for example, you can work with your customer support team when they get, especially when they have interesting questions from customers that you might draw insights from. Justifying and convincing people of your decisions is something you do a lot as well, and you have to do it really succinctly and clearly. So you can't just decide on something without providing an explanation. For example, maybe you don't like this color because you hate green. That's more like maybe green isn't aligned with our product branding, so perhaps we should try a different shade of blue instead. So that's more like a more convincing statement. But it's a learned skill, just like any other PM skill, just like any other skill in life. So it's not like you need to be born with a great product sense or great communication skill. I didn't start out having the best product sense or being like a good communicator, even up to now, but I'm still learning and growing, trying to get better at what I do anyway. As long, I think, if you can showcase these aspects in the interview and to your interviewer, because there's always going to be preparation for you to do anyway, then you should do okay.
Yeah,
Thanks,
if I
Evie.
could add on to that as well, I think it's really interesting to listen to points there, but also like when it comes to case studies, like when you are presented with them, it's important to know that there's no right or wrong answers to them. It's the matter of the interviewers wanting to see how you react or how critically you think to the problem statements that you may be presented with. So I think it's important to to obviously thoroughly think about it as well, but there's no right or wrong answer. They want to see how you think, the process, your thought flows, and even if it's a wild idea that you want to throw out to them, it could bring something, some hidden meanings to them that could be useful for the role you're applying for as well. So yeah, definitely something that you can think of as well.
Neat. Something out of the box, and then also for more things about communication, empathy. That's really great. Thank you both. So I'll move on to the next question in this case. What do you think are some of the more relevant skills and qualities of a person who will shine bright in the PM role? Would you like to go first?
Would shine bright in a PM role. I think just to iterate what I've mentioned earlier on, just 3 things I would think. So it's having a good product sense, understanding what makes a product great, and also, as what Alicia mentioned earlier, you also really need to understand the thought process behind what makes a product great. So there's no right or wrong answer to that. There's also some empathy that you need to have for your users as well. Walk in the user's shoes, ask open-ended questions, and then just having a good all-rounded communicator. So be that verbally or a written skill, as long as you can justify and convince people about your thought process of a certain decision that you make, then it should be good. Yeah, so like I mentioned, it's a skill set. Not everyone is born as a great communicator. Naturally an introvert, so I have different working styles compared to people. For example, I might prefer an asynchronous work a bit more because I can take my time to think and respond to people rather than have an answer immediately. But all these can be improved and it can work in different aspects anyway. But yeah, it's also something that I'm still learning as I grow as a product manager.
And Alicia?
Yep. So to, I think, mirror exactly what you said earlier, especially on how communication is underrated. It's obviously a very important skill to have as a to shine in the product management role. But it's not just the ability to speak to different people, but also I think the ability to listen to different people. Because I think as a product manager, you're gonna hear a lot of voices coming from everywhere. You'll hear from people who represent the needs of the customers, people who represents the voice of the business or the company that you work for. And then you'll probably also hear from like the technical people, the people who built the product and trading ideas, thoughts. And with that, you would need to be able to filter through everything that you hear, be able to come to a common understanding or a common ground, take all of that information, digest them, and from there, that's how you build a plan or what could be a roadmap as well for the feature or the product that you're working on. And yeah, I think with that, obviously, it's important to speak confidently because you need to be able to speak to the different groups of people. Like for example, with the business stakeholders, people who run the company or the business, you probably don't want to go too detailed into technical workflows, technical jargons, or procedures, because ultimately what they want to know is how your product or how the feature would bring value to the business or to the company. And then I think similarly with the group of the technical people that you may be working with, could be designers, could be developers, you wouldn't want to go too detailed into speaking about value propositions or numbers behind the business, because what they want to know is how your features that you want to introduce or the product that you want to grow would be technically feasible, and how it would tie in with, let's say, other features that may be existing with the product already. So with that, they want to know how stable would the product be, would the feature be. And so I think with that, you need to also adjust your wavelength of speaking to these different groups. So that I guess covers two things: ability to speak to different groups and also listen to the different groups of people there. And I think something else that's pretty equally important is analytical skills. So being able to spot trends, identify patterns, be able to draw conclusions from them and come up with a solution or solutions to address those issues. And I think this also proves critical thinking skills, where you sometimes need to make quick decisions given the limited amount of time or resources that you may have, but to the best of your judgment, to make a decision that you think would be best at that point of time. And with that, you have to work with these different people as well. So again, ties back to communication, which I think is the main takeaway point from, I guess, the both of us, since I think the word communication has been mentioned way too many times in this question, but that shows the importance of having that skill in this role.
Yeah, if you had RM1 for every time that was mentioned, we have a lot by the end of this call, I think. I definitely see a lot of overlap there. There's a lot of talking about the ability to adapt and specify, to go granular, to zoom in or to zoom out based on who the recipient is, to adapt your communication for each different stakeholder or team member's objective, and also to what they need. There was this saying that a PM shared with me recently about how data analytics skills and also storytelling is actually a very deadly combination. And I find that underpins a lot of what makes a product manager for the day-to-day. Okay, thank you very much for that. So another product related question: should, in your opinion, aspiring product managers have adjacent or related experience to the role itself, i.e. a designer, even if they're not a software engineer? Why or why not? So I think this question would be more for Alicia.
Yep. So I think, of course, it would be helpful if you do have adjacent experience, because what that means is you would have experience of working with a product manager, you would know how they think, how they react, how they communicate, their way of work, things like that, how they, their internal processes goes on, and things like that. So definitely helpful to have experience, but by no means is it a deal breaker. And I definitely speak about myself with this experience. So of course, I think what the most of the product management skills I learned was on the job. So of course, where I can, I learn from my colleagues from different departments, how it ties in together, how we each collaborate to reach a common goal, for example. So yeah, in my opinion, it's useful to have my adjacent experience because you have experience of working with those people. But then by no means is it a deal breaker for getting a product rollout. It just is helpful to have, but of course, a lot of things you can learn on the job and gain experience from that. So yeah, I would say that's about it.
Thank you. Good sharing. We also had some questions directly related to your experience switching into product. So I suppose this would be quite a common one, but relevant nonetheless. So what would have been the hardest challenge that either of you had to face when you first started in product in your early days? So Yihui, you can take this one.
So I think one of the hardest things that I had to learn, the challenge I had to face, was the learning curve when talking to developers. Because I wasn't a technical person. I'm still not a technical person, but I do understand a bit more things than before. It helps to be technical because when you're solving a problem, you also need to know what can be technically done or not, and to be asking the right questions to the developers. But what I learned along the way was to ask the questions anyway, until you understand what can be done or what cannot be done from the developers. Most of the time, the developers are happy to answer your questions because it also would make their lives easier when you do understand and also when you do make the decisions. For example, one of my challenging projects that I had to do when starting out was building a CMS. So usually you would already have a CMS to work with, so that you can already populate your content right away. But in one of my previous roles, we had to build one from scratch. I didn't know what kind of requirements were needed, but I was quite lucky to have like a good manager and also a good developer to help point me at the right direction. So yeah, that's one of the things that I struggled with, but I got better with time. Yeah, so also like what Alicia mentioned, it's not really a huge deal breaker for companies, most companies these days, because you can always learn from it in a job. And if you show initiative and show proactiveness in the job itself, you can just do well and learn quite quickly. Yeah.
Thank you. Alicia, what was your personal hardest challenge when you first started as a product manager?
Yeah, so I think as mentioned previously, I started learning about it from watching a video series of design thinking and agile development. So I think the hardest challenge of like me transitioning to an actual PM role was to actually practice those in real life. So I read a lot, I watch a lot of videos on like best practices, what constitutes agile development, Scrum, Kanban, all these jargons that you hear about, and you're interested and really enthusiastic to actually deep dive into them. But then what I came to realize is that different companies practice it differently. So some companies may practice certain elements of the design thinking process, but leave out a certain process because perhaps it's not to the best interest of the team or the company or the product. So with that, it was an adjustment to actually practicing what I learned. And with that in itself, I think it's also agile in itself because you need to be flexible and adapt to the different processes that you may learn along the way. So that was definitely something I went through in my initial stages of being a product manager. Learning the different ways that agile can be practiced. Like I think after joining my current company and networking with other product managers, I realized there's so many different ways that product management can be practiced and can be done in real life, and that's a learning curve in itself as well. So that was what I personally went through. But of course, being a PM, you learn how to be agile and flexible as well. So that's what I did along the way.
More things about adaptability as well, I suppose. So just to summarize that for you here, yours was a learning curve when learning how to first speak technical, speak developer, but just persist and ask questions anyway until you get better at that. And then for Alicia, yours is more about transitioning from, I would say, what were a lot of readily available textbook concepts and then really having them be applied in that working environment. Thank you very much. Good to know. Okay, now, so I guess more to the day-to-day, how do the both of you deal with it when you have users who complain or give feedback about certain aspects of your product that it didn't deliver what was promised? Do your previous backgrounds before PMing influence your approach to this? You can start with this first.
So in my opinion on this one, when these cases happen, it feels like we might not have understood the actual problem to begin with, which is understanding the problem first before actually building the solution. So you get customers requesting features here and there all the time, saying, oh, I want this, I want that. But sometimes customers might not know what they actually want. So it's better to ask them what problem they're actually facing instead of just following their requests and feature requests all the time. Because let's say if a customer is complaining about a slow horse, naturally you might think, okay, I might get a faster horse to help customers combat that problem. But also like what Henry Ford used to say, this famous saying from his, if I had to ask my customers what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. He wouldn't have built cars then. So this is why having like a bit of product sense and having empathy comes in handy, because you would need to understand a bit better about what makes a product good by talking to customers and understanding their problems before you actually build the actual features for them itself. But at the same time, you also need to expect that sometimes things do not go as planned. So you need to manage that expectations when, let's say, they complain about a product or you didn't deliver as promised. Maybe they assume that a release would include a certain batch of new features, but instead that feature gets pushed back later on down the roadmap. That's just something that you probably just need to communicate back to the customers, just manage the expectations. Because I say this because I used to work with clients back in my digital marketing agency days, and we had to manage their expectations and firefight a lot. So sometimes you just need to, unfortunately, take the hit from them sometimes, but you learn from it and move on. Most of the time, the customers will be fine with it. So don't get too hung up over it when that happens. Just move on and just keep building and learn from that.
So your previous background in finance or your own approach in IBM before influence how you deal with this now as well, Alicia?
Yeah, definitely. So in my finance days, I think what one skill that I gained from there was to be inquisitive or like be curious about why certain things are happening. So back then what I did was I had to prepare financial documents and revenue projections of future months, and present it to senior management. And when the monthly close activities actually happen and you see actual revenues come in, you would then need to identify, what was the cause of the gap, the variances, why didn't your numbers align to what you projected, things like that. So it made me a naturally inquisitive person. So I think that definitely ties into my current approach to product management, which is to be inquisitive about why we're getting certain feedback could be from customers, could be from internal teams as well. Sometimes you will hear from your adjacent colleagues on certain input or feedback on the product. So I think that again ties back to, I think, reflective of what you mentioned earlier about potentially not understanding the initial problem at hand before building the product. So I think reflective of that is to really understand what was the issue at hand and the processes that you go through to actually dive deeper into them, to assess and then decide on what to build for the short term or even the long term. So yeah, that was what I would say my previous non-product management background taught me about approaching matters like this. So it definitely shaped me into the inquisitive PM that I am today. Yeah, in a sense.
Okay, just thinking from what the both of you shared. So for Yihui, it would be more like really again communicating. Sorry, that's another ringgit for the jar. Communicating and managing the expectations. Also, I guess the age-old adage about PMing, which is when something great happens, you celebrate it with the team, but if something bad happens, you take the hit to protect the team as well and share it together. Then for Alicia, yours was more to really understanding what happened behind certain issues or certain dissonances, so that you're able to get to the bottom of it and learn how to investigate all the gnarly things. Okay. So that was about addressing feedback for users, but on a similar vein, are there aspects of the way that you product manage currently that come from your different backgrounds? So I suppose this would be more for Alicia, because you expanded quite a bit on how you deep dived and investigated.
Yeah, I think prior to that also, I think it ties into my educational background. So I had a degree in economics, which taught me a lot of numerical concepts, being able to critically think, not critically, come up with logical reasoning concepts, and also be comfortable working with large amounts of data. And then that again tied into my the first job that I got, which was at IBM as a business planning analyst within the finance department. So dealing with deadlines, as I had to submit financial reports on time to management, senior management, dealing with vast amounts of spreadsheets, of pivot tables, creating summarized reports from large amounts of data that may be structured or unstructured. So that was where I had to learn how to deal with a lot of different data, which I think helps me to adapt to being a product manager, where I had to deal with large amounts of information coming from different sources. So I think what my former experience taught me was how to deal with different voices, different viewpoints, feedback. And I think what's interesting out of this is from there, you actually get to understand where those voices are coming from, their thought processes. Like, for example, you hear something from your customer success team who may be speaking on behalf of the customers. And then you hear from your technical team who are looking at the viewpoint of your product from a technical standpoint. And you get to see the different viewpoints of what they represent, what they're talking about. And I guess you as a product manager gets to sit at the intersection where you get to understand and make a decision out of that as well. So I think tying that back to my former educational background, finance background even, it's teaching me how to be structured, to listen to the different groups of people, to be able to logically reason and come up with suggestions on how to move forward, things like that. But yeah, that definitely my previous experience definitely shaped me to be I'll call myself the structured PM that I am today. So yeah, definitely.
Thank you so much. Yihui, you elaborated quite a bit on this earlier, but would you still like to add something on about the way you PM from your different background?
Yeah, so coming from the digital marketing agency background, I collaborated and worked with many different teams because you need to always be able to collaborate with them closely on client campaigns. So that means communicating well, both verbally and in written form, especially in product when you need to convince others about your ideas. So that's a huge part of what I took from my digital marketing agency days to product. There's also the project management aspect where I dealt with multiple client projects, which helped me plan and manage sprints as a product owner, but at the same time also helped me to be a bit more detailed and structured in my work, since there's a lot of moving parts happening at the same time. So I had to be really quite structured in that sense. Research is also important, coming from my marketing days too. One of the things I had to do was to research the market, the competitors of a client's project. Same thing as well when I'm still a PM, because that way I'm also researching about competitors and also the market and how we can get into that areas. So yeah, I think those are a few areas that I that I can use it to my product management skills right now.
Thank you both again for sharing that. Again, I'm hearing that there are actually a lot of transferable skills that can be taken from really whatever role that we take on and whatever backgrounds we have, as long as we learn how to apply that to the requirements and how a PM typically works with the different departments and the different stakeholders. So I guess now is like the time to be quite a sage for the participants we have today. So do you have any advice to give to people who are looking to break into this field and to switch into product? I guess this could go to Alicia first.
Yep, sure. So I think online platforms are abundant in sharing on industry best practices, the typical day-to-day life of a product manager. You can like come across a lot of them online. But the one platform that I enjoy reading through on a day-to-day basis is LinkedIn, because I think from there you get to follow relevant groups, relevant pages, influential people even, who once in a while they will post really interesting viewpoints on certain topics relating to product management. And I think with that, you learn a lot about what the job really entails, different type of scenarios that you may come across when you're in a product position. So I think two particular pages that I would really recommend for people who are starting out with product management. One is called Product School. So I think it's an American run page where they share a lot of best practices, a lot of interesting topics. And I think the most recent post that they had was on a selected list of books to read if you want to break into product management. Which is pretty interesting. One of them was on, I think it was cracking the PM interview, I think is the title of the book. But that was pretty interesting to to read through their suggested reading list, suggested website that you can go through even. So that's pretty interesting. The other page that I like to glance through every now and then is called Product Hunt. So with there, you get to see different new products, up and coming ones that are from all over the world. You get to see what why they built it in the first place, what kind of issues do they solve or do they represent. And from there, I guess it expands your viewpoint as well on how various different products can solve all kinds of issues that you may think of in the digital world. So I think that's where you could potentially start off to get to know a bit more about the industry, the product, the whole area of product management. And I think if you're into podcasts as well, that's even better, because there are quite a lot of very interesting podcasts that you can listen to on Spotify. One particular one that I got to know from my colleague is a podcast called Developer Team, and it's like bite-sized 5 to 10 minute sessions on this person sharing about his experience as a developer, what he does on a day-to-day basis, different viewpoints on topics of development, more catered towards developers. But from there, you as a product manager get to understand their viewpoints as well. And it's very short, like 5-10 minute sessions where you just when you want to take a break at work, you literally make a cup of tea and listen to the podcast. So it's called Developer Tea. So I quite liked that that particular podcast. And there's a whole range of other providers out there that gives very interesting viewpoints. So I think where you can start is from making use of available resources online, and that's definitely where you can start getting an idea of what you could get into in the future. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Yihui, how about you? Anything to share as advice for the participants?
Yeah, to add on to Alicia's list of resources that you can reach out to, you can, if you want to get better at communicating and being a better manager, Making of a Manager by Julie Zhou is a really, really good book on just all-rounded on how to communicate people and manage a team and all. Julie Zhou, she used to be the VP of design of Facebook, and she has gone off to just do her own thing right now. And then there's another newsletter that can you really subscribe to. It's called lennysnewsletter.com. Lenny used to be the Airbnb lead back in the day, and now he's gone off to do lennysnewsletter.com as his full-time role. There you can really get a lot of good product resources. So it's not just only for new product managers, but any other like all existing experienced product managers can really get a lot of insights there. And they really get into the detail, and they have specific case studies and use cases that you can actually do in your day-to-day product role. Yes, Deborah Liu's newsletter. She also has a new book that just came out as well, which I think might help people who wants to, I think, communicate a bit better as well. It's called Take Back Your Power or something like that. So Deborah Liu is also one person. If you're into podcasts, Lenny also has a podcast. It's also called Surprise Lenny's Podcast. He also interviews a lot of other product people around the world, and you get a lot of insights just by one episode from it. And yeah, I think besides all these resources, what you can also do is network with existing product managers around the local area, or find product groups that you can join. Talk to the existing product managers there. You might not find a job immediately by talking to them, but you can at least get help from them, seek advice from them, or so on, because most of the time they'll be willing to help newcomers as well. If you do join a product management course, it might also get you so far, because what a lot of interviewers would like to see a lot is maybe your own portfolio. And typically product managers, it's hard to show your portfolios. So what you can do is what I mentioned earlier, to build your own side project. So you don't need to learn code to build one. There are plenty of no-code tools like Webflow, Card, Softer, etc., etc. What you just need to do is find a problem that you want to solve and build it there. And be sure to document your journey along the way, so you can use it as case study to speak about it in your cover letter or your interview. Because for myself, I did build a few side projects using no code. So I built this platform to discover artists in Malaysia. I built also this visual gratitude journal where people can actually record their gratitude on this journal app thing. So a lot of things are possible with no code. And I'm not saying it's a replacement for code, but it provides more freedom and accessibility for non-technical people like myself to build something from scratch without really needing to rely on code. So if you do manage to build a side project yourself, you do. I would advise also to bring that up during your interview, because I think the interviewers would be appreciative that you actually took the initiative to do something in your time.
Thank you very much, both. Before we move on to the Q&A from the crowd, I do have some items to add on for what you both just described. In terms of the Webflow or no-code items, I definitely agree, Yihui, because most of the time developers are more than happy to work with you on the back-end portion. In fact, usually when I try to ask some questions like, I would prefer if I settle this part for you, but you tell me which one to do and what you want to achieve from it. Basically, they want to get to the end goal, and then you can discuss it with them. So being able to help them visualize it with the behavior and how you navigate from one frame to the other, or the interactions, usually helps them a lot. In terms of what both of you have also commented about networking with PMs, this actually helped me land my roles as well, because not only did my PM friends in existing companies put an ear out for me for opportunities, but they were also very helpful when I bought them coffee and asked like, hey, this is how I answered for some of my previous interviews. What do you think I did wrong? How do you think I could have done this better? Then they helped them to hone my answers and also my product sense from there. Some things you can only understand through people who have been there, if your interviewers may not be so forthcoming to give you that kind of feedback. And to add on to your list of resources for the both of you, definitely Lenny's podcast. Deborah Liu is the one I also follow quite religiously. What I also do is ask my developers what resources they recommend, because when they look for certain things like developer T, it helps a lot to see what they listen on a day-to-day basis to understand more of that. Okay, so now moving on to some of these questions. This question is actually from Xin Ying, who I'm not sure if she's in today, but what is the future of PMs and product managers? Do you think it would be an irreplaceable role, at least for the next 10 years? So I suppose, Yihui, you can go first, since you already unmuted.
Sure. I don't think it's a replaceable role, at least in the next 10 years. I say this because maybe for developers, we hear about it a lot, like, oh, robots are going to take over like coding, and even designers, where you get like lots of tools like DALL-E and all those actually generating AI generated art for you. So that might be also close in the future if you do get into UX designing. But product management, I don't think it will be replaced anytime soon, because that's something that you and I, and as a team, we need to work a lot and communicate a lot across different teams and all. And not just that, you also need someone to strategize, come up with the vision, making decisions on certain aspects of the product, planning the roadmap. So a lot of these things, I don't think AI would be able to help us anytime soon, or maybe correct me if I'm wrong on this. But yeah, I don't think it's we're replaceable soon.
So our jobs are relatively secure for the next 10 years. Huh? Good to know.
It should be good.
Yeah, this will be good for Sining when she comes on later. Okay, so then Alicia, do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think definitely reflective of what you has mentioned. You would ultimately, for any product, for software product, even hardware product, you would still need someone who sits at the cusp of understanding the business side of things, the creative side of things, and the technical side of things. So it's quite hard to to really get a specialized robot to do all of this together at one go. You will still need the brains of someone to really sit at that intersection and make decisions that ties all of this together. So definitely an important role to have for any product. And irreplaceable is a strong word, but I think unless a really smart AI system comes up, I would think it's pretty solid, a pretty solid role for the upcoming the short-term future as well. Yeah.
Okay, I think the reasoning behind this question being asked is just the concern for job security, especially with how some things can be a bit fleeting with tech, which is understandable. But for those who are looking to switch into PM roles, or are students in the crowd, frankly, when you develop these kinds of skills, right, you do not necessarily need to just stay in a PM role, i.e. even with the inevitable, like with some tech companies where even the most talented software engineering teams get laid off, like in San Francisco right now, it's actually quite easy to find other people who are able to appreciate these talents with your insights, your ability to analyze, communicate, and also do this kind of storytelling with data. This is while the role of PM itself, even if it doesn't become irreplaceable, it's also like you would easily be able to transfer into other roles regardless of the industry. So don't worry about that. There's hope for us. So next, let's see. This can be for the both of you. This question comes from Jackie, I think who is a salesperson. How and why did you embrace the switch to product management? What relevant skills are required for this change? We've answered the relevant skills portion. So I guess why did you embrace the switch to product? I guess Yihui could take this.
I think back then I was unsatisfied with what I was doing in marketing. I didn't really see a future with marketing. I wasn't interested in already marketing the already finished product, where I had no visibility on what thought process was put into the making of that product. And then when I came across UX, that UX workshop, then I realized that, oh, that's actually something that I could do, that is that I didn't need very related skill sets to actually join the product management roles that I've been applying to. And I guess I say this because most of my clients, their products are all hard. They're not software, so they're like makeup products, food-based products, healthcare products. So they're all just not software. So I didn't think that it was possible to actually build a product itself unless you get into industrial design, for example. But when I actually found out about UX and the tech side of things, and only then it opened a bit my eyes, and I embraced it because I get to be at the forefront of actually building the product itself along with a team of people, and also kind of working together to making that vision come true. So yeah.
Thank you. Alicia, do you have anything to add to this?
Yeah, so I think I embraced how I embraced my switch to product management was I knew what I wanted to get into. So I think my previous role in finance was very structured, very siloed, a lot of red tape, a lot of processes. And I think from learning about how your favorite digital products like Spotify, Snapchat, all of that, they were built with a lot of freedom of creativity, freedom of speaking your mind, understanding different types of users, coming together to come up with creative solutions. I wanted to get into that. So I knew I wanted to get from a structured to a potentially unstructured work environment. So I think that made my transition a bit easier, because I wanted to get into that sort of that workflow, that sphere, that environment. So that's, I guess, how I embraced it. The change that is, and I think, yeah, it's just a matter of enthusiasm, of wanting to switch into something new, something potentially exciting, that would definitely help the transition. Of course, I think along the way you would need to learn some skills on the job, but of course that is always that's a thing you do every day. Like even today, I'm always learning new stuff from the developers I work with, the commercial teams that I work with. So yeah, I guess being enthusiastic about change would help the process of switching. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it seems like the product people tend to really enjoy making the unstructured structured, and then when new things come up the next day that are different, it's just like, okay, let's get to this again. Personally, I enjoy the kind of chaos, so that's very relatable. All right, here's also a very, very good question from Neftali, who's a student. Thank you, Neftali Wong. What do you think are the other ways that college students can gain relevant product management experience besides taking up an internship in the country? So I guess, Alicia, you can start first.
Yeah, so I think this what comes to mind is what Yuhei mentioned earlier, which is on portfolios. So I think one way you can stand out without actually having work experience in product management is showing initiative in actually showcasing your creativity, your ideas within your own set of portfolios or your own projects. And that this is something I definitely wished I knew beforehand, because I do see the thrill and the interest in actually building your own portfolio, having something to talk about, but at the same time actually also learning something along the way of like building a portfolio. So it could be as simple as thinking of improvements to existing features, existing products out there, showing your viewpoints, your thoughts. We can go even further by coming up with potential mock-ups of what they could look like, potential screens on how you want that product to look like instead. Or if you're even more ambitious, you can come up with your own fictional product that you have an idea about. Come up with like a flowchart diagrams on how they will work like, screenshots of mock-ups of what the finished product can look like. And I think this shows a huge amount of initiative in wanting to get into the shoes of a real product manager, and something that I think as a student you would have a lot of exposure to, like creating business case studies, being part of a team environment, teamwork. And I think something that a colleague of mine who actually just joined as a product manager showcased in his interview was how he and a group of friends created a side project during their uni days, which had existed until today. And that shows initiative of him wanting to, starting from young or from before he graduated, wanting to get into the shoes of a product manager. So this shows I mean, this is a huge plus point for any interviewers to see, and it would be a great skill to add to your belt. So yeah, that's definitely something that could be done for students.
Thank you very much. I'll add on to that because when I was in university and design thinking had just gotten popular, we had a lot of design jams, and you would see like the real product / design nerds, in classes. Well, after that, we're just like, who's good at this? Like, can we do something together? Do you want to build something? Because we all wanted to try to apply to these kind of roles, even before there were PM roles. For others listening in as well, there are also hackathons. So both like university hackathons or more professional level hackathons where you get people who are students, you get people who are existing workers jamming, and they may or may not have coding experience, but you can try to contribute and pair up with different people. So if you've dabbled a bit with design, you can try to find people who are better at the commercial aspect, better at the developing aspect, and then try to collaborate together in a team. Okay, so next, moving on, questions from attendees. So thank you, Ken. What's a precursor position to product manager? Product assistant manager? Associate product manager? Are there these roles available that you've experienced? What are your thoughts? I guess Yihui, you can go first.
Usually it is what it's called as an associate product manager, or maybe a product associate. So that's usually a precursor position. But mostly I see this happening in bigger companies. So if you're looking for startups, you can just jump right into a product manager as an entry level. Sometimes they also have junior product managers as well. It really depends on the companies. But usually it does start with an associate product manager or a junior product manager before you move on to a product manager.
Noted. How about Alicia? Have you seen like a similar roles or different roles?
Yeah, I think the typical hierarchy would be like associate product manager and then product manager and then senior product manager. I think from myself, speaking from my experience, I started out not a fully fledged product manager. I started out product support. Officially, my title at work was business development associate, which has nothing to do with product management, but somehow I weaved my way into product support. So what I did was I supported a senior PM at the time with not the nitty-gritty PM's day-to-day roles, but more on supporting in terms of documentations, in terms of write-ups, storing files, things like that. But from there, that's where I gained experience of what actual product management could be like. And I think from there, I just had a conversation with my managers to move into more hands-on product management. And very, very briefly, I had a stint as a QA tester as well. So that gave me hands-on experience on actually testing the tangible product that was developed by developers from the direction of a product manager. So it links back to product management in the end as well. And I think from there, that's how I moved into a more solid product management experience. So I think different people have different career paths into product management. It could be as unorthodox as mine. I went through so many different phases to get into a product management role. But of course, there's where you can, when you do see an opportunity, just like go for it. And who knows, maybe the hiring manager itself will be willing to take you in, even if you don't have relevant experience, and they are willing to like train you up even. So yeah, just like if you see one, just go for it and do your best in whatever task that you may be presented during the process.
Thank you very much, Alicia. So that was really insightful. We are moving on to our last question. So sorry, Neftali. So this one, is it better to obtain certifications such as a Google PM course in order to stand out from the crowd? So Alicia first.
Yeah, so I think I've came across a lot of positions that says certification highly not requested, but like highly appreciated, or like would be useful if you have official certificates or things like that. my personal experience is that certifications would definitely give you a lot of theory on how to best practice working as a PM with a lot of technical skill sets, a lot of technical mindsets, but by no means is it a must-have for product management roles. I can't say much about like for big tech corporate giants. Maybe they might appreciate certifications like that, but to start off with, I don't think it's a necessity or huge necessity to have something that certifies your theoretical knowledge on product management, because ultimately what you can prove to interviewers who may be speaking to you is how your skill set brings value to the job or to the company. So yeah, that's my my thought on it.
Thank you so much. So I think that concludes it for the list of questions that time allows for today. Now it's the fun lightning round. I hope you've got your pen and papers ready. Let me find the list. So just give me a thumbs up when you both have it. Okay, thank you, Alicia. So prepared. Classic PMs. Okay, so the first question, one sentence or phrase that you say the most when you're speaking to business stakeholders. So just quickly write that down and then show it on paper after you're done. So just repeat one sentence or phrase that you say the most when speaking to business stakeholders. Okay, done? All right, hold it up and you can unmute yourself to answer. Okay. Yeah, so for Alicia, it's backlog, and for Yihui, it's no. Do you want to elaborate a bit more on that? Can unmute, yeah.
Yeah, I need to turn this around for my video camera. But yeah, no
problem.
because sometimes while I appreciate the ideas that come through for the product, but a lot of times we get sidetracked with the overall vision and what we already have in the roadmap. Like for example, GithEd, we are an online learning platform for courses, but then my CEO suggested that we should dive into Bitcoin, and I'm like, no, maybe not for now. So yeah, because since we're just starting out anyway, and while I do appreciate ideas that we can explore in the future, but it's not something that we should even consider now because we haven't even have a product to begin with.
I understand. And Alicia, backlog.
Yeah, backlog. So how things run at least in the team that I'm in is that we get a lot of feedback, a lot of suggestions on what to add to the product, which a lot of them are part of our roadmap or our backlog. Actually, if there's a word that is I use a lot, it's combination of backlog or roadmap. So what I would then tell them is, oh yes, it's in our roadmap, it's in our backlog. But we need to find time to actually put that into actual hands-on work for our developers. So a lot of times it is, yes, it's in our backlog. We have the feedback, we know what they want, or we have heard this before. So yeah, backlog. So yeah, it's a commonly used word. Yeah,
I see. Personally, my phrase would be, it'll be shipped next sprint, but okay. Next question, which one do you like better? Talking to business stakeholders for requirements or grooming tickets with developers? So you can write down talking to business stakeholders or grooming tickets. Rock and a hard place lah, I appreciate. But... Okay, hold them up. Okay, grooming tickets. Yeah, high five. Okay. Can't you elaborate a bit more since you both have the same answer?
Yeah, for me, it's because I personally work the best with my group of developers, because I think outside of work we are pretty close as well, but then within work I think it just helps with the overall work relationship that we have. And I think working with them is quite fun as well, because you actually understand their thought process. You actually understand, or what I like to do is I like to get their viewpoints on working on this particular ticket or that particular ticket, how it then ties into the feature that we want to develop for, let's say, the upcoming sprint or the upcoming cycle, so to say. But yeah, I personally prefer working with this group of people that, where we can hash out ideas a lot more better. That's just my personal experience.
Thank you really much. Thank you very much. I was going to ask another question, but I got prompted by several team members that it's almost time to wrap up. So message received. Maybe if I could trouble you to share the screen back. So for us.
Yep. Give me a moment.
Yes, no problem. If you could just move to slide number 7.
Yep. On the way.
Thank you. Thank you. So we were talking about like the most common use phrases, but I think this is the most famous one, regardless of rule. Nice. Okay, so if you could just slideshow that, please. Every time I say like share screens, it sounds like one word call. So for everybody else, if you're on your phone, it would be really, really helpful if you could give us 1 minute of your time to complete this feedback survey. The QR code is here, and there's also a link in the chat. So let me just copy that again for those who need it. And then if you can move on to the next slide, please. You can connect with our speakers, both by also scanning the QR here. Our slides are now QR optimized, or you can also go through to their LinkedIn profiles within the chat as well. We've shared both Alicia and also who is linked there. And Dan's also added his profile there too. So I'll give you a few more seconds to do that. And then if we could move on to the final slide. So these are the different areas that you are able to stay tuned to what we do. You can follow us on Facebook, where we will post different kinds of workshops or seminars, or also talks like this. We also have quite an active presence on LinkedIn, where we will push this and then share this through to all our connections. We also have a Meetup and PTix account through which you purchase these tickets, and you can subscribe so that you get notifications whenever we have a new event, whether it's virtual or physical. Lastly, if you would like to join the community to volunteer, also to get live broadcasts about this or to get involved, then you can also find us on Telegram, again with another QR code, or just type t.me/wwcodekl, and the links are also in the chat. For those who are remaining, if you are all right with it, we would love to be able to take a group photo with you. So if you could turn your video on, that would be great. So you can do that by clicking the open video option in the bottom left. And then I'll have to also trouble you again, Mavis, for a screenshot, if that's all right. It's been almost 2 years of trying to take group photos on Zoom for events, and it's still very chaotic. Hello, everybody. Hope you had a good time and had some interesting insights from our speakers. Okay, let me remove Spotlight so that all of us can together. Excellent. Anybody still want to turn on your video? Lovely. Hi, Chloe. Nice. All right. So smile and maybe if you could help. Hey, maybe you turn on it, right? You're on mute.
Smile, everyone. One.
Okay.
Hold on, pause it is a screenshot method of taking pictures.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. Okay.
It's like quickly take and then quickly paste. Okay.
Let's do one more, some different style.
Yeah.
So 1, 2, 3. Okay, you need another one. Okay, hold the pose.
Okay.
1, hold it. 1, 2, 3. we are good.
Muscle sakit already lah. Okay.
We are good now.
Exactly. So thank you everyone for your time today. This was really, really good. We will update the link to this recording later if you want to come back to follow and review the video again. We'll also try to share the resources probably on the events or some of the social media channels for that. Have a great week ahead. And again, if you would like to connect with our speakers to ask them more questions, you can do so. Their URLs are within the Zoom chat. And also you can look them up on LinkedIn. Have a lovely
feel
evening,
free to
everybody.
connect with us also. Like
Oh,
Kim
sorry,
said.
what?
Feel free to connect with any of us also, so that
Yeah.
they can.
Yeah, so you can look at our names lah. That's the reason why we got that slide in the beginning. Okay, so for the speakers and the organizing team, please stay back. And for the rest, we bid you a pleasant week.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Thanks, Dan.
Have a
Ciao.
good day.